I was standing at this kitchen sink, scraping the last bit of salad dressing into a Tupperware, when Mom said it calm as you like she was reading off the weather. "We're out of oat milk again. Can you pick some up on your way home from work?" I didn't look up. I just pressed the lid down and asked, "Is this for you or for Lauren's hormones?" She didn't laugh. She never does when it's about Lauren. "It's for her tea," she said, folding the grocery list like it was a church bulletin. "She needs to relax before her flight." I paused. "What flight to Reykjavik? Didn't she tell you a beat? It's for her women's retreat." "Iceland. Cold air is good for resetting cortisol levels." The faucet kept running. My hands were wet. I turned around slowly. "She's going to Iceland." Mom blinked like I'd asked something odd. "Just a few days. Spa resort. It's all very holistic. She's been so stressed lately, Cassie." I stared at her. Iceland, spa, holistic, stressed. That was the word she used, not irresponsible, not unemployed for 19 months, not the reason I've been covering the mortgage, the groceries, the phone plan, the utilities, and apparently now the oat milk for Icelandic hormonal balance. "How's she paying for it?" "She won it," Mom said quickly. "A raffle or something online." "Of course she did. She won a retreat to Iceland in a raffle," I repeated. "Yes." A pause. "Don't sound so skeptical, Cassie. She deserves something good." I dried my hands slowly. The edge of the dish towel caught on my ring. "When I got promoted to team lead last year, I said, 'You said congratulations,' and then asked if I could help with the water bill. That was your whole response." Mom's face tightened. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It isn't." From the hallway, I heard the jingle of keys. Lauren breezed into the kitchen like it was her private runway. She was wearing the parka I gave her last Christmas. The one she said was too boring. She looked radiant. She opened the fridge. "Where's the oat milk?" I didn't answer. Mom handed her the folded list. "Cassie's picking some up." Lauren kissed her cheek. "Thanks, sis," she said without looking at me. Then she floated out the door just like that. I watched the door close behind her. The silence after felt heavier than before. "I thought she was broke," I said. "She needed the trip," Mom replied. "You don't understand how hard it's been for her staying home all day." I didn't argue. The sink was still running. I didn't turn it off. Because deep down, I knew something was off. Not just this trip, not just the oat milk. It had been off for a long time. I just didn't want to be the one to say it. Not yet, but that was about to change. The next day, I searched Retreat Iceland raffle just to see if it was a real thing. It wasn't. I wasn't surprised. I asked Mom about it again over dinner casually. She was reheating something frozen and pretending it was homemade the way she always did when she wanted to look like she was holding the household together. So, what kind of raffle was it? She blinked, then looked down at the microwave like it had just said something inappropriate. "Just a travel sweepstakes thing," she said. "You know how Lauren is with those online entries. She's always entering something." I took a bite of dry meatloaf and nodded slowly. Funny she didn't say anything. She usually brags about things like that. Mom gave me a look. "She probably didn't want to upset you. You've been working so hard lately." That was new. Concern. "I'm not upset," I said, and I wasn't. Just tired. Tired of being treated like the backup generator of the household. Always humming, always running, only noticed when something breaks. The next morning, the credit card company called. I was in a meeting when I saw the number flash across my phone. I let it ring twice, then answered. Something in me said I shouldn't wait. "This is Andrea from Goldline Credit." The woman said, polite but firm. "We're calling to verify some activity on your account." I stepped out of the room. "What kind of activity?" "Multiple high-value transactions out of Reykjavik, Iceland," she said. "Luxury lodging spa services retail." "Just confirming you're traveling." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I'm not." A pause on her end. "Would you like to freeze the card?" "Yes," I said, immediately. $24,000. That's how much had been charged to my gold card in under 3 days. I scrolled through the itemized report she emailed me: boutique hotel, private tour, thermal spa, 4 restaurants, and something labeled Glacier Heli Excursion. I forwarded it to myself, then printed it at home. I left the pages on the table where Mom always read her paper. I didn't say anything. That evening, I came home to a strangely calm living room. Mom was folding laundry with extra purpose. Dad, who rarely spoke unless ESPN was on, cleared his throat. She didn't mean anything by it, he said. I waited. The card was just lying there. You always leave it out, Mom added. It's not like she stole it. I picked up the page from the table, held it up. $24,000 in 3 days. She thought it was expiring, Mom said quickly. She didn't want it to go to waste. I stared at her. She said that I asked. Mom hesitated, more or less. I didn't say another word, just picked up the paper and went upstairs. On the voicemail, Lauren's voice was chipper. Hey, sis, she said. Looks like the card stopped working. Can you fix that? I still need to book the ice cave tour. Love you. She hung up without waiting for a reply. I didn't tell them right away that the card was frozen. They found out the next morning when Lauren called from the hotel lobby. Mom was in the living room pouring her third coffee of the day. The mug said, "Grateful heart" on the front. She says her card isn't working. Mom said, phone to her ear. I didn't look up from my laptop. No, it isn't. She blinked. You turned it off. I reported it stolen. I said calmly. Dad from his recliner. That seems excessive. She took it without asking, I replied. That's theft, last I checked. Mom's voice was tight. You always overreact. Lauren called again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Seriously? You canceled it. I have things booked, Cass. That's incredibly immature. I was going to get you something. That last part, I don't know why that made me laugh. Maybe because it was said with such confidence. As if a t-shirt from a tourist shop justified $24,000 in unapproved charges. Later that day, Mom knocked on my bedroom door. She hadn't done that in years. We need to talk, she said. I shut the laptop. She stepped in and sat down like she still had authority in the room. She's stranded. She's in a 5-star hotel. She has no food money. She ordered truffle risotto last night. It's on the invoice. She's your sister. That again. That ever-reliable script. Family. Obligation. The eldest daughter as contingency plan. I sat up straighter. Do you remember when I was in college and got that stomach ulcer from working 3 part-time jobs? Mom looked uncomfortable. You're bringing that up now. I called you crying, I said. I needed help with a hospital bill. $2,000. Silence. You told me Lauren needed braces more. She pressed her hands together. That was a different time. It was always a different time. She looked older in that moment, not just tired, but exposed. Like the lines around her eyes weren't just from age, but from holding a mask too long. Then she did something I didn't expect. She reached over and put her hand on mine. I know we didn't always treat you fairly, she said. But right now, she really needs you. I didn't pull away, but I didn't nod either. I thought of the voicemail, the receipt, the way Lauren said, fix it, like I was tech support, not her sister. I thought about the day I turned 16 and they gave her a car and me a savings bond. I thought about the time she borrowed my rent money to start a business and then bought concert tickets. And I thought about the house, the deed in the drawer, the one Dad signed over to me 5 years ago when he couldn't cover the back taxes. The deal was simple. I pay, I own it. I thought about all of that and then I smiled. Okay, I said. Mom looked up surprised, relieved. You'll help. I stood and walked to the dresser, pulled open the top drawer and took out a different card. Black, clean, unused. This one's still active, I said, handing it to her. Book her whatever she needs. She took it like it was forgiveness, like the world was right again. I watched her leave the room, and then I picked up my phone and called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. Grandma, I said, are you still looking for kitchen help at the cafe? The next few days were strangely quiet. Lauren's calls slowed down after the third voicemail. She'd moved from cheerful to annoyed to something that sounded like passive apology. She never said the word sorry, but there were enough sighs and drawn-out pauses to let me know she thought that counted. Mom started moving with a little more softness. Less commanding, more suggestion, like offering a cup of coffee when I came home. Like asking how work was but not waiting for the answer. And me, I smiled. I nodded. I said yes. I handed them a card. It wasn't the gold one. That one was gone dead buried. This one was black newer. It had been sitting in the back of my drawer for over a year. I'd gotten it after a client event never used it. I activated it, set a limit, and handed it over. She still has some things to cover, I said neutral. Flights, meals, whatever. Mom looked like she'd just been handed a second chance. She didn't ask why the card looked different. She didn't ask why I activated one I hadn't touched in months. She didn't ask anything. That was how I knew she was still playing her role, and that she thought I was still playing mine. Lauren texted the next night, "Cards working. You're the best. I'm bringing back a surprise." I didn't answer. Instead, I packed 3 boxes and booked a moving service for the following Tuesday. Just clothes, books, paperwork, the things that mattered. The rest could be replaced or forgotten. I called the realtor the next morning. Her name was Andrea. We'd met once at a networking event 3 years ago. She remembered me, asked how the house was holding up. I told her I was ready to let it go. She didn't need to know the rest, only that the deed was in my name, that I was the sole signatory, and that I'd be out by Friday. She said she had a buyer who'd been waiting on this block for months. We scheduled the walkthrough. In the garage, I found the copy of the tax transfer papers Dad had signed. I'd kept them in an old folder marked temporary. I never changed the label. Upstairs, I removed the framed family photo from the hallway, the one from Christmas 7 years ago. I'd been cropped at the edge, barely a shoulder. It used to bother me. Now it made sense. I was never really in the picture, just close enough to cast a shadow. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Not yet. I left the key under a rock in the garden for the moving crew. Marked the boxes kitchen documents don't lose. Then I drove to Grandma's. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. No questions, just a nod and a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I have 3 rooms," she said, "and no patience for nonsense." I smiled. Perfect. Inside, the house smelled like flour and tomatoes and old wood. The kitchen was loud clatter orders shouting in English and Spanish and something in between. Her cafe hadn't changed. Neither had her rules. "You ready?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I will be." She wiped her hands on a towel and looked me in the eye. "They'll show up. When they do, I'll handle it." I know, and I did. They came back on a Thursday, mid-afternoon. Sky, half-cloud suitcase wheels dragging over the walkway like a warning. I was waiting. Not inside the house. On the porch swing. Lauren got out of the car, first, smiling like we were sisters who actually talked. "You came to pick us up." I didn't answer. Dad grabbed the bags. Mom reached for her keys. She tried the lock. Then again. She looked at me confused. "Did you change the door code?" "No," I said. "I changed the lock." She blinked. "Why, you don't live here anymore." She laughed, that dry, clipped laugh she used when something made her uncomfortable. "Cassie, come on." I stood up slow, walked down the steps, and handed her a manila envelope. Inside, signed closing documents. Sale confirmation, wire transfer receipt. Andrea had worked fast. The buyers were moving in on Monday. "I sold it," I said. Lauren frowned. "Sold what?" "The house." Her face fell like a dropped plate. "You can't do that," she snapped. "That's illegal. This is Dad's house." Dad opened the envelope. His face went pale before he even reached the second page. "Cassie, you signed the deed to me 5 years ago," I said quiet. "Remember when the IRS came?" He opened his mouth, closed it, sat down on the curb like he needed air. Mom's voice sharpened. "You had no right." I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch. "I paid the back taxes. I've paid the mortgage, the bills, the maintenance, the repairs. For half a decade, I've kept this house standing. You just lived in it." Lauren stepped forward. "So, where are we supposed to go?" I handed her a second envelope. She opened it. Inside, an address, a set of keys, and a sticky note in Grandma's handwriting. "Room upstairs. Work starts at 6. Apron on by 5:45. Mom stared at the paper like it was written in code. "You sent our things to your grandmother's. I sent your things to your mother," I corrected. "And she agreed to take you in. As long as you pull your weight." Lauren scoffed. "You think she can tell me what to do? She's been doing it since before you were born." Dad finally spoke. "What about the card?" I turned to him. "Which one?" "The black one. The one we used." Oh, I said. That wasn't mine. Lauren stiffened. What? That card was yours, I said, meeting her eyes. You opened it 2 years ago, left it in a drawer when you quit that copywriting job. I never used it, she snapped. You did now. She looked at the paper in her hand, then back at me. You're lying. I didn't reply. The moving truck pulled into the driveway. The new owners stepped out, a couple with a baby and a dog, beaming. I turned back to my family. You have 3 days to vacate Grandma's guest rooms. Mom's mouth opened, closed. I didn't wait for what came next. I walked to my car, started the engine, and left. No speech, no last word. The house was already gone. So was I. It was quiet for a while after that. No calls, no voicemails, no late-night knocks on my door. Just peace. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. 2 rooms, soft light, no shared walls. The kind of silence you don't realize you've missed until you finally get to keep it. Work picked up. I stopped checking my bank balance 3 times a day. I stopped flinching when the phone rang. I bought flowers for my own kitchen table, not because it was anyone's birthday, just because I liked the color. Then one morning, Grandma called. She never starts with small talk. They're adjusting, she said. I didn't ask who. Your mother scrubs pans slower than I'd like, but she's doing it. Your father learned how to fold napkins poorly. And your sister, she finally figured out how to clock in on time. I didn't say anything. Grandma sighed. They're not saints, but they're different. Some things can only be learned by sweat. That night I couldn't sleep, not from regret, just weight. The kind you don't realize you've been carrying until someone names it for you. The next week I stopped by the cafe, not to talk, just to see. The back door was propped open. The usual smells garlic oil yeast wrapped around me like a coat I hadn't worn in years. Through the kitchen window I saw them. Lauren wiping down Counter's hair, tied back sleeves rolled. Dad folding paper menus into neat stacks. Mom, hands in dishwater mouth, pressed into a line. None of them looked up. I didn't go inside. I just stood there watching, not with anger, not with pity, just clarity. They looked like people who were finally being asked to hold up their end, and for once, no one was reaching for my wallet. I walked back to my car. Later that week, I got a letter, handwritten. My name in careful cursive I hadn't seen since childhood. Inside one line, "You were right. I just didn't want you to be." Mom. No apology, just that. It was enough. I folded it, slid it into a shoebox with a few other things I hadn't thrown out yet. An old photo, a birthday card from Grandma, the receipt for the back taxes I paid the year they nearly lost everything. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just closed the lid. Months passed. Seasons changed. Sometimes I'd hear about them secondhand through Grandma or a friend from church. Lauren got a second job. Dad fixed the cafe's leaky pipes. Mom started baking again. None of it made me feel anything big, just something small. Like, maybe... The ground had settled. One Sunday, I walked by the old house. New paint, new flowers, a tricycle in the driveway. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, because this wasn't a story about getting back what I lost. It was about leaving before I lost myself, and making sure no one ever erased me again. See.
Hey, I'm Laura, 28 years old and thriving in my marketing career. But when it comes to my personal life, things are a lot messier. 5 years ago, my dad, Robert, remarried Linda, and suddenly I had 2 step-siblings, Jake, 30, and Megan, 26. Let's just say we're far from the Brady Bunch. Now it's Christmas time, and while I should be feeling festive, I'm anything but. My mom, Elizabeth, is in the hospital battling cancer. She's my rock, my best friend, and the thought of losing her is tearing me apart. I'm determined to make this Christmas special for her, even if it means balancing work and constant hospital visits. I walk into the office, but my mind is already at the hospital. Tom, a coworker of mine, catches my eye. Rough night, Laura. Is it that obvious? I force a smile. Your 3rd coffee gave it away. How's your mom? I sigh. Not great, but I'm planning a surprise for her this Christmas. Tom nods sympathetically. Anything I can do? Actually, yeah. Could you cover for me this afternoon? I need to finish that big project and then head to the hospital. You got it, boss lady, he says with a grin. I bury myself in work, ignoring the buzzing of my phone. It's probably Jake or Megan with another update on Mom. They live closer to the hospital, so they've been the ones keeping me in the loop. I should be grateful, but something about their constant updates always makes me feel uneasy. As I'm wrapping up, my phone buzzes again. It's Jake. Hey sis, they moved Mom to a different hospital for specialized treatment. Here's the new address. I frown. Why didn't they tell me sooner? I pack up quickly, rushing out and nearly running into Linda in the hallway. Lyra, I was just coming to find you, she says, her voice sweet but dripping with something that doesn't sit right with me. Sorry, Linda, I've got to run. Mom's been moved to a new hospital. Her face falls slightly. Oh, I see. Well, don't forget about our family dinner tonight. Your father's really looking forward to it. I'll be there if I can, I say, already heading toward the elevator. But Mom comes first. I arrive at the new address, a sleek, modern medical center I've never seen before. Approaching the receptionist, I try to keep my voice steady. Hi, I'm here to see Elizabeth Thompson. She was transferred here today. The receptionist types something into her computer, then looks up, shaking her head. I'm sorry, but we don't have any patient by that name. My heart sinks. That can't be right. My brother said she was moved here for specialized treatment. I'll double check with admissions, but I'm certain we haven't had anyone by that name admitted today. As she makes the call, I dial Jake's number. It goes straight to voicemail. Same with Megan. Panic starts to set in. Did they lie to me? Why would they send me to the wrong hospital? I race back to my car, tears blurring my vision. How could they do this? Why would they keep me from my mom, especially now? As I speed toward the real hospital, I make a silent vow. This betrayal won't go unanswered. Slamming my car door shut, I rush toward the entrance, the icy wind biting at my face. Panic and rage fuel my every step. How could Jake and Megan be so cruel? The automatic doors slide open, and I'm hit with that sterile, antiseptic hospital smell. The reception area is quiet as I approach the desk, barely holding it together. Please tell me Elizabeth Thompson is here, I say, my voice trembling. The nurse types into her computer, then nods. Yes, she's in room 34, but visiting hours are over. Before she can finish, I'm already halfway to the elevator. I check my phone again, still nothing from Jake or Megan. The elevator ride feels endless and exhaustion hits me like a tidal wave. How did everything go so wrong? I was supposed to be here hours ago, surprising Mom with her favorite Christmas treats and a soft blanket I bought for her. When I reach her room, I pause. Through the small window, I can see her sleeping, looking so small and fragile. I take a deep breath and quietly step inside. Mom, I whisper, taking her cold hand in mine. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. Suddenly, I hear voices outside the door. Two nurses speaking in hushed tones. Poor thing, one says. She was so upset earlier, kept asking if her daughter had called. I know, the other replies. It broke my heart. How could anyone abandon their mother on Christmas Eve? Their words stab into me. I didn't abandon her. I was tricked, manipulated by the very people I should have been able to trust. Tears stream down my face. I sit by her side, holding her hand, whispering apologies she can't hear. As the first light of Christmas morning filters through the window, I make a silent vow. Jake and Megan won't get away with this. Around 7 a.m., Mom stirs. Her eyes flutter open, and when she sees me, her face lights up with joy. Lyra, you're here. I force a smile, my heart breaking. Of course, Mom. Merry Christmas. I'm so sorry I'm late. She squeezes my hand, her grit weak. I thought you weren't coming. I would never abandon you, Mom. There was a mix-up with the hospital, but I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. As I explain what happened, I see the hurt in her eyes. It kills me that she spent even a moment thinking I've forgotten her. Oh, sweetheart, she whispers, touching my cheek. It's not your fault. I'm just glad you're here. Her forgiveness only fuels my anger toward Jake and Megan. How dare they hurt her like this? How dare they try to come between us? Lyra? Mom's voice snaps me back to reality. Is everything okay? I paste on another fake smile. Everything's fine, Mom. Just some work stuff. Let's focus on us, okay? I've got some presents for you. As I pull out the gifts I'd so carefully chosen, my mind is already racing, planning my next move. Jake and Megan thought they could mess with me. Mess with us. They have no idea what's coming. The weeks following Christmas blur into endless hospital visits and sleepless nights. Mom's getting weaker, and I'm spending every spare moment by her side. But beneath my exhaustion, a fire burns. I'm done being the victim. I start small. I keep a meticulous log of every interaction with Jake and Megan. Their lies, their manipulations. It's all going down. But it's not enough. I need more. One night, after leaving the hospital, I run into Michael, an old college friend who's now a detective. We grab coffee, and before I know it, everything pours out of me. Jesus, Laura, Michael says, shaking his head. That's messed up. Have you thought about taking legal action? I sigh. I've thought about it, but it's not that simple. It's my word against theirs. Michael leans in, his voice low. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this, but if you want to build a case, you need hard evidence. Bank statements, emails, anything that shows a pattern. His words stick with me. The next day, I take a leave of absence from work to care for Mom. It's not a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. With my newfound free time, I dig deeper into Jake and Megan's lives. It's amazing what you can find when you start looking. Jake's social media is full of casino check-ins, while Megan flaunts her lavish shopping sprees. Where's all this money coming from? As I gather evidence, doubt creeps in. Am I going too far? But then I remember Mom's face on Christmas morning, the hurt in her eyes. My resolve hardens. No, I'm not going too far. I'm just getting started. It all comes to a head at a family dinner. Dad and Linda, as usual, are clueless, but Jake and Megan, they're in rare form. So, Laura, Jake smirks. How's work? Still climbing that corporate ladder. I force a smile. It's fine, Jake. How's the family business? He falters just for a second before recovering. Never better. Dad's thinking of making me partner soon, right, Dad? Dad beams with pride. If only he knew. Megan, ever the instigator, chimes in. And how's Elizabeth doing? Still hanging in there. The casual cruelty in her tone makes my blood boil. She's fighting, I say through gritted teeth. Not that you'd know, since you never visit. Megan scoffs. Well, some of us have actual jobs to do, Laura. I'm on the verge of losing it when my phone buzzes. It's Michael. Got something big. Meet me ASAP. Later, in a dimly lit coffee shop, Michael slides a folder across the table. You're not going to believe this, he says. Jake's been embezzling from your dad's company for months, and Megan, she's been stealing drugs from the hospital and selling them. Serious felonies. I flip through the documents, my hands shaking. This is it. This is everything I need to take them down. Laura, Michael says softly, are you sure you want to do this? Once you start, there's no going back. I think about Mom, lying in that hospital bed, getting weaker every day. I think about all the lies, the manipulation, the pain Jake and Megan have caused. And I think about Christmas Eve, alone, scared, and betrayed in a strange hospital. I'm sure. I say, my voice steady. They've had this coming for a long time. The game is on, and this time, I'm making the rules. The day I set my plan in motion feels surreal. With shaking hands, I send anonymous tips, one to the hospital about Megan's drug theft, another to Dad's company about Jake's embezzlement. It's like lighting a fuse and waiting for the explosion, but I can't focus on that now. Mom's condition is deteriorating rapidly, and I'm spending every moment by her side. One afternoon, as I'm reading to her, she squeezes my hand weakly. Laura, honey, she whispers, her voice fragile. I need you to promise me something. I lean in close. Anything, Mom. Don't let this anger consume you. You're better than that. I feel tears welling up. Does she know? How could she? I don't know what you mean, Mom. She smiles softly, knowingly. Yes, you do. Just remember, the best revenge is living well. Before I can respond, her eyes flutter closed. The heart monitor flatlines, and just like that, she's gone. I collapse onto her, sobbing, as the nurses rush in. In that moment, all thoughts of revenge vanish. I just want my mom back. The next few days pass in a blur. I'm numb as I plan the funeral, going through the motions. When the day arrives, the church is packed. I stand stoically, accepting condolences, my eyes fixed on the casket, my heart shattered. Suddenly, there's a commotion at the back of the church. Two police officers enter, heading straight for Jake and Megan. "Jacob and Megan Thompson, you're under arrest," one officer announces loudly, "for embezzlement and drug trafficking, respectively." The church erupts in shocked whispers. Jake and Megan protest, their faces a mix of rage and disbelief as they're handcuffed. I catch Jake's eye, and in that moment he knows. His face contorts with fury. "You," he snarls. "You did this on the day of your mother's funeral, you heartless." His words cut off as the officers drag them away. The truth comes pouring out. Jake's gambling, Megan's drug dealing, everything. I watch as Dad and Linda's perfect family crumbles around them, their world shattered. But instead of triumph, I feel empty. This was supposed to be my moment of victory, but all I feel is exhaustion. Mom's words echo in my mind. The best revenge is living well. Weeks pass. Jake's trial ends in a guilty verdict, and he's sentenced to prison. Megan loses her nursing license and faces her own legal battles. Dad and Linda are left devastated, struggling to come to terms with the truth. As the dust settles, I realize Mom was right. Living well is the best revenge. In her name, I start a foundation to support cancer patients and their families. With each person we help, I feel a little piece of my heart heal. A year later, I stand at Mom's grave, placing fresh flowers on the headstone. I've just come from a board meeting for the foundation. It's thriving, and my career is back on track. "We did it, Mom," I whisper. "The truth came out, but you were right. Living well, that's the real victory." As I turn to leave, a sense of peace washes over me. I glance back at the gravestone, the weight of revenge lifted. "I love you, Mom. Thanks for teaching me the most important lesson of all." Now, I know that no matter how dark things get, the truth always finds a way to shine through. What about you? If you were in Laura's position, do you think her actions were justified, or did she go too far in her pursuit of justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Emily. It was late spring, and the air was thick with the anticipation of graduation. I was preparing for one of the most significant moments of my life, delivering the valedictorian speech. But little did I know, my biggest challenge wouldn't be the speech itself or the crowd. It was my grandmother, Helen. Living with Helen was no easy feat. She had a sharp tongue and a knack for making me feel small. My mom, on the other hand, was the complete opposite, always there with a comforting hug and words of encouragement. She was my rock. As for Dad, he stayed mostly in the background, silently observing the family dynamics unfold. One afternoon, I sat at my desk, surrounded by drafts of my speech. I could hear Helen's voice drifting up from downstairs, her words laced with that familiar edge. "Always the star, isn't she? I wonder if all that praise will go to her head." I rolled my eyes and tried to block her out, focusing on what mattered. This speech was my moment. Years of hard work had led to this, and I wasn't going to let her bring me down. My friends were excited, my teachers proud, and I had big plans for college. But as I fine-tuned my words, a part of me dreaded the inevitable commentary from Helen. Just days before graduation, as I practiced my speech in the living room, she wandered in, her gaze critical. "That's quite an ambitious tone, don't you think? Maybe a bit much," she remarked, her voice dripping with condescension. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. "This speech is important to me, Grandma. It's about my future." Helen scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Ah, the future. Just remember, pride comes before a fall." Frustrated but determined, I kept refining my speech. Mom, as always, was my biggest supporter. Over dinner, she gave me a reassuring smile. "You're going to be amazing, Emily. Don't let anyone's doubts, especially not family, dim your light." Her words comforted me, but as I lay in bed that night, my mind raced. This wasn't just about the speech or the applause, it was about proving something to myself and to Helen. I needed to show her that my achievements were worth celebrating, no matter what she thought. As graduation day approached, the tension in the house grew thicker. Helen's comments became more frequent, her bitterness casting a shadow over everything. But I stayed focused on what lay ahead, my moment on stage, where I would stand as not just a student, but a young woman ready to face the world. The morning of graduation arrived, sunny and clear, the perfect day for what should have been one of the best moments of my life. I adjusted my gown and cap, catching my mom's proud smile from the front row. "You've got this, Emily," she mouthed, her camera poised and ready. The ceremony began with speeches from the principal and a few teachers. My heart raced as my turn approached. With a deep breath, I stepped up to the podium, smoothing the pages of my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow graduates, I began, my voice steady and confident. But before I could continue, a piercing siren blared through the air. The fire alarm. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Parents stood up, craning their necks, while staff rushed to manage the situation. The entire ceremony was thrown into chaos. Back inside the school, huddled with a group of classmates, I overheard whispers. "Did you see Mrs. Thompson by the gym just before the alarm?" One of my friends asked. Wide-eyed. "Yeah, she looked really flustered," another added. My stomach dropped. They weren't talking about Mrs. Thompson. They were talking about Grandma Helen. No, it couldn't be, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. Later, as the chaos settled and we were allowed back on the field to continue the ceremony, I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. On my way, I overheard a snippet of conversation that stopped me cold. "Just saying, sometimes these kids need to be knocked down a peg or two." The voice drifted out from a slightly ajar janitor's closet. Curiosity pulled me closer. I peeked inside, and there she was, Helen, pacing with her phone pressed to her ear. My heart sank as I caught the tail end of her words. Yes, well, Emily was getting a bit too proud of herself. What's a little alarm compared to a lesson in humility? Her tone was casual, dismissive, completely at odds with the weight of her words. My stomach churned with a mix of anger and heartbreak. My own grandmother had sabotaged my big moment, all because she thought I needed to be humbled. Tears stung my eyes as I backed away, the betrayal settling like a stone in my chest. How could she? Why would she do this to me? Those questions swirled in my mind as I made my way back to the field. The remainder of the ceremony blurred into a haze. The joy of the day was tarnished, and as I looked at Helen, seated with her face unreadable, I knew things between us would never be the same. After the graduation fiasco, I was overwhelmed with emotions. Betrayal cut the deepest. I couldn't stop thinking about how Helen, someone who was supposed to love and support me, had done something so cruel. I needed answers. The next few days became a mission. I spoke to everyone who had been near the gym before the alarm went off. Several classmates mentioned seeing Helen nearby, alone, and looking unusually agitated. My friend Jenna, who had been backstage, even recalled Helen lingering near the fire alarm panel, claiming she was looking for the restroom. With these accounts, I went to the school's security office and asked to see the CCTV footage from that day. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. There was Helen, clear as day, pulling the fire alarm. Every piece of evidence hardened my resolve. This wasn't a prank. It was a deliberate act meant to ruin one of the most important moments of my life. That evening, I confronted Helen at home. The evidence was laid out before us, undeniable. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, thick with the weight of betrayal. Helen's face was a mix of defiance and something unreadable. "You were getting too full of yourself, Emily," she said, crossing her arms. "Someone had to show you that the world doesn't revolve around you. By humiliating me in front of everyone?" My voice cracked, rising with disbelief and hurt. "That's how you teach humility." For a moment, Helen faltered. A flicker of remorse crossed her face. I may have gone too far," she admitted, her voice softer now. "I didn't mean to hurt you like this." But her apology rang hollow. It wasn't just about what she did. It was about why she did it. She had undermined me, not out of love or concern, but out of some twisted need to put me in my place. Supported by my mom, who had always been my pillar of strength, and friends who stood by me, I made my decision. I could have just let this go. Some wounds cut too deep to heal with words alone. "I can't accept your apology, Grandma," I said, my voice steady. Despite the turmoil inside, I managed to say, "Not this time. You need to reflect on why you felt this was necessary." As I turned away, I felt a bittersweet mix of sadness and relief. It was, perhaps, the hardest decision I had ever made, but it was necessary for my own growth. In that moment, I wasn't just walking away from Grandma Helen. I was stepping into a future where I understood my worth, where no one's jealousy could ever dictate my value again. The fallout from Grandma Helen's actions was swift and severe. News of her sabotage spread like wildfire through our family and the community. The whispers did their work, and within days, everyone knew what she had done at my graduation. The disappointment and shock reverberated in every conversation, every glance directed her way at community gatherings. Helen soon noticed the cold shoulders, the disapproving looks. Invitations that once filled her calendar dried up, and friends she had known for decades suddenly found reasons not to meet. Her social circle, once a source of pride and comfort, crumbled beneath the weight of her betrayal. The very community she had invested so much in now shunned her, and the consequences of her manipulation extended far beyond just our family. Even her small business suffered. Longtime customers began withdrawing their patronage after hearing about the graduation incident. Trust, the foundation of any successful business, had been eroded. Soon, Helen's financial stability was as compromised as her social standing, leaving her facing an uncertain and lonely future. Meanwhile, the school, recognizing the injustice of what had happened, organized a second graduation ceremony. This time, the stands were filled with solidarity and support, not just for me, but for the principle that no student's moment should ever be stolen from them. As I stood at the podium, ready to deliver the valedictorian speech I had worked so hard on, I felt a surge of strength and independence. The words flowed naturally, speaking not only of academic achievements, but of resilience, community, and the courage to stand against toxicity. I stand here today not just as a graduate, but as a testament to what we can overcome when we stand together, I declared, my voice ringing clear across the field. The applause that followed wasn't just for my academic success, but for the journey I had taken to get there. Looking out at the crowd, I saw faces beaming back at me, their smiles and tears a balm to the wounds Helen's betrayal had left. My mom's eyes were bright with pride, not because of the accolades I had earned, but because of the person I had become. This Redo ceremony was more than just the culmination of my high school career. It was a celebration of personal victory, of rising above the toxic forces that had tried to undermine my achievements. With my diploma in hand and a future full of promise, I stepped off the stage, ready to embrace a life no longer defined by the shadows of others' insecurities. As I moved forward, the past, along with its pain and betrayal, began to recede, leaving behind valuable lessons and a resolve strengthened by adversity. Helen's fate became a stark reminder of where bitterness and envy can lead, a path I was determined never to walk. Today, I look forward to a future filled with possibilities, supported by those who believe in lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. As for Helen, her journey was hers alone to reckon with, a distant echo in the life I was building anew. Now here's a question for you all. Do you think it's ever justified to take drastic actions, like Helen did, if you believe someone needs to be brought down a notch? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Amelia, 28 years old and working as a social worker. And let me tell you, I have the best little brother in the world. Jake. He's 16 now, and even though we're not related by blood, he's been my partner in crime ever since my dad adopted him when he was just a little kid. Life was pretty great, until my dad married Victoria 3 years ago. From day one, that woman had it out for Jake. Nothing he did was ever good enough. He's not really part of this family, she'd say when she thought I couldn't hear. We should focus on having our own children. My dad, Robert, has been no help at all. He always takes her side, saying, Amelia, honey, Victoria's just trying to adjust. Give her time. Yeah, right. 3 years is plenty of time to stop being a jerk to a teenager. Thank God for my best friend Nate. We work together at social services, and he's been my rock through all this. You've got to stand up to her, he told me over coffee one day. Jake needs you in his corner. I sighed, I know Nate, but every time I try, Dad jumps in to defend her. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. Things got even more complicated last month when Jake's biological mom, Sarah, showed up out of nowhere, suddenly wanting custody. I thought, where have you been for the past 12 years, lady? But the real kicker came at our last family dinner. Victoria was in rare form that night. With her voice dripping with fake sweetness, she looked straight at Jake and said, So Jake, I hear your real mother's back in town. Bet you're excited to go live with her, huh? I saw Jake's face fall. Victoria? I don't even know her. This is my family. But Victoria just laughed. Oh, sweetie, let's not kid ourselves. You know you don't really belong here. I saw red. That's enough, Victoria. Jake is as much a part of this family as anyone else. Dad jumped in, of course. Amelia, don't raise your voice. Victoria's just stating facts. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Facts? The fact is Jake is my brother. Period. Victoria smirked. Blood is thicker than water, dear. You'll understand when you have real children of your own. That was it. I shot up, my chair screeching against the floor. Come on, Jake. We're leaving. As we drove away, Jake stared out the window, quiet. Ames, he finally said in a small voice. You don't want me to leave, right? My heart broke. Never, kiddo. You're stuck with me, whether Victoria likes it or not. Little did I know, things were about to get so much worse. Victoria wasn't just mean, she was dangerous, and she was about to show her true colors in the worst way possible. The custody hearing was fast approaching, and Jake was a bundle of nerves. We spent the whole week prepping, going over potential questions and scenarios. What if I mess up? Jake asked, pacing around my apartment. What if Sarah wins? I grabbed his shoulders. Hey, you've got this. Just be honest, okay? The judge will see how much Dad and I love you. He nodded, but I could still see the doubt in his eyes. That night, we ordered pizza and tried to relax, watching dumb comedies until late. As Jake headed to bed, he gave me a hug. Thanks, Ames, for everything. I ruffled his hair. That's what big sisters are for, squirt. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of retching. I rushed to the bathroom to find Jake hunched over the toilet, his face pale and sweaty. Jake, what's wrong? He looked up at me, his eyes glassy. I don't feel so good. Before I could respond, he collapsed. Panic seized me as I dialed 911. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Jake was barely conscious, his body shaking violently. The doctors whisked him away, leaving me pacing the waiting room. After what felt like hours, a doctor approached me. Miss Carter, your brother is stable, but we're concerned about the nature of his symptoms. We suspect he may have ingested a toxic substance. My blood ran cold. You mean he was poisoned? The doctor nodded grimly. We're running tests to confirm, but yes, that's our current theory. I felt like I was in a nightmare. Who would want to hurt Jake? And then it hit me. The custody hearing. My hands shook as I called Dad to tell him what happened. While I waited for him to arrive, I overheard a familiar voice in the hallway. It was Victoria, talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, the brat won't make it to the hearing now. Serves him right, trying to weasel his way into our family. I felt sick. She couldn't mean, but deep down, I knew. Victoria had done this. When Dad arrived with Victoria in tow, I couldn't hold back any longer. I confronted her right there in the waiting room. How could you? I hissed. He's just a kid. Victoria's face twisted into an ugly sneer. I don't know what you're talking about, she spat. I heard you on the phone. You poisoned Jake to stop him from going to the hearing. I accused. Dad stepped between us, his expression hard. Amelia, that's a serious accusation. Victoria would never. Oh, please. Victoria scoffed, cutting him off. Even if I did, which I'm not saying I did, he's not really family. He's just some stray your ex-wife picked up. I lunged at her, but Dad grabbed me, holding me back. You're lying. I shouted, my voice shaking with anger. Jake is more family than you'll ever be. Dad looked bewildered. Amelia, calm down. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. I stared at him in disbelief. A misunderstanding. Jake is in there fighting for his life, and you're defending her. Victoria, ever the actress, burst into crocodile tears. Robert, I would never hurt Jake. Amelia's just upset and lashing out. I watched, sickened, as Dad comforted her. In that moment, I realized I was on my own. I'm going to check on Jake, I said coldly, turning away. Don't bother coming in. Neither of you. As I walked down the hall, I made a silent vow. I would protect Jake, no matter what. And I would make sure Victoria paid for what she'd done. One way or another, I'd expose her for the monster she truly was. After the hospital incident, I knew I couldn't let Jake go back to that house. Nate didn't even hesitate when I called him. Bring him to my place, he said. We'll figure this out together. Jake settled into Nate's spare room, but I felt a mix of relief and dread. What was I going to do next? We need dirt on Victoria, Nate said over late-night coffee. Real, solid evidence. That's how we'll expose her. That's how I found myself sitting across from Frank, a private investigator with a no-nonsense attitude. I'll dig, he said, narrowing his eyes. But are you prepared for what I might find? I nodded, jaw set. Whatever it takes to protect Jake. A week later, Frank called me in. Your stepmother's been married 3 times before your dad, he began. Each marriage ended with accusations of fraud and emotional abuse. I felt sick. How did she get away with it? Money talks, Frank said. But there's more. I found her second ex-husband, Tom. He's willing to talk. Meeting Tom felt like staring into a mirror of pain. Victoria destroyed me, he said, hands trembling. Emptied our bank accounts, turned my kids against me. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I'm so sorry, Tom. I had no idea. His eyes hardened. There's more. She's involved in a real estate scam, selling properties that don't exist and stealing people's life savings. My mind reeled. Do you have proof? Tom nodded and slid a USB drive across the table. Everything's on here. I've been gathering evidence for years, but I was too scared to act. I stared at the tiny drive, knowing it could change everything. But when I tried to tell Dad what I'd found, he shut me down. I can't believe you're still on this, Amelia, he said coldly. Victoria would never hurt Jake, and these accusations are insane. You need to let it go and come home. I felt the anger rise in my chest. Let it go. She poisoned Jake, Dad. Now I find out she has a history of fraud and abuse, and you're still defending her. Because she's my wife, he shouted, his voice cracking. She loves me. She wouldn't do these things. I shook my head, realizing that I might be losing my dad in this fight. I'm sorry, Dad, I said softly, but I can't ignore this. I won't let her hurt Jake again. I knew what I had to do. It was time to expose Victoria for who she really was, no matter the cost. I called Nate, my hands trembling. I need your help. We're going to take her down at the custody hearing. Nate's voice was fierce. I'm in. What's the plan? As I outlined what I had in mind, a mix of fear and determination settled over me. This would tear our family apart, but I had to protect Jake. And maybe, just maybe, I could stop Victoria from hurting anyone else ever again. We've got one shot at this, I said, my resolve hardening. Let's make it count. The day of the rescheduled custody hearing arrived, and my stomach was in knots. Weeks of gathering evidence had led to this moment. As Jake and I walked into the courtroom, I squeezed his hand reassuringly. When it was our turn to speak, I took a deep breath. Your Honor, before we discuss custody, there's something the court needs to know. I presented our evidence, Jake's hospital records, the PI's report on Victoria's past, and statements from her ex-husband. The courtroom erupted into murmurs as I laid out her history of fraud, manipulation, and abuse. Victoria's face contorted with rage. This is ridiculous. They're all lies. To my shock, Dad stood up. No, Victoria, it's time for the truth. His voice trembled. Your Honor, I've been blind, but Amelia's right. Victoria poisoned Jake. I found the evidence she tried to hide. Before anyone could react, the courtroom doors burst open. FBI agents entered, approaching Victoria. Victoria Thompson, we need to ask you some questions about a real estate development in Florida. As they led her away, I overheard snatches of conversation about a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. The judge, clearly rattled, made his decision. After hearing how close Jake and I were and how strongly he opposed living with his biological mother, the ruling was clear. It was the happiest moment of my life when the judge awarded me custody of Jake. I was officially his legal guardian. Outside the courtroom, Jake hugged me tightly. We did it, Ames. It's over. In the weeks that followed, Victoria's carefully constructed world crumbled. Her high society friends abandoned her as news of her crimes spread. The real estate scam alone guaranteed she face years in prison. Dad tried to make amends, but I told him we needed time and space to heal. Jake and I focused on rebuilding our new life. We both attended therapy to work through the trauma, and I even started a support group for people from fractured families dealing with toxic relatives. We met weekly, sharing stories and offering comfort. It wasn't always easy, but watching Jake thrive made everything worthwhile. One afternoon, Dad called. Amelia, please. Victoria's lawyer reached out. She wants to apologize, to make things right. Can't we try to work things out as a family? I took a deep breath. No, Dad, some things can't be forgiven. Jake and I are happy now. We're safe, and that's what matters. As I hung up the phone, I felt a sense of peace. We'd been through hell, but we'd emerged stronger. Now we were finally free to be the family we were always meant to be. Looking over at Jake, diligently doing his homework at the kitchen table, I smiled. The road ahead might not be easy, but together we could face anything. And that was all that mattered. Now, here's a challenging question for you. If you were in Amelia's position, would you ever consider reconciling with your father, given his role in enabling Victoria's abuse? Or do you believe some betrayals are too deep to forgive, even when it comes to family? This is a complex moral dilemma. On one hand, forgiveness could lead to healing and rebuilding a relationship with a parent. On the other, his failure to protect Jake and his initial disbelief of Amelia caused significant harm and trauma. What would you do? Is there a point where family loyalty should be abandoned for self-protection? Or is there always hope for redemption and reconciliation? Share your thoughts in the comments.